Ready.
All right, we are live. So, hello everyone. We're the Deansless Group. I'm Dean,
I'm Mike.
And I am Kevin.
and the purpose of this video is to talk about how to lead your clients. And actually, the reason why we're having this conversation is because Kevin brought up the topic. So, Kevin, why don't you just kind of talk a little bit about why you wanted to jam out about this?
Yeah, so I have been busier as of late and just, taking on more clients, and things are just starting to get a little crazy for me. And I know you and Mike obviously have been exactly where I am, and you've been able to basically keep the wheels on the wagon, so to speak. And I'm just struggling a little bit with more deals comes more chaos. So, I've just been getting the feeling that my transactions are a little bit too loose, so to speak. So I wanted to get some advice on how to, keep more control over each transaction, because, I'm just getting pulled so many different ways. I can't really, I don't feel like I'm controlling anything. I feel like, whatever comes to me is just slapping me in the face every day. So,
Let's unpack that a little bit. So why don't you give us one example of where that's showing up
mhm.
and how and kind of the pain point that's being associated with that. And
Yeah.
then me and Mike, all of us will just kind of mastermind about that and
Yep.
come to some conclusions.
Yeah. So it's a huge deal for me. Like Carmen's deal, her buy side, dude, the HOA thing is fucking killing me right now. And it's all my fault, like 100%. You know what I mean? Like I put the HOA application in late, and now it's really just coming back to haunt me, literally. So, and I thinking back to that time, I was working like 5 or 6 deals at the time, and I had Carmen's deal, and I kept basically like, okay, I got to do that today. Okay, no, I got to do it today. I got to do it today. And I just kept, I don't know what happened, but I didn't get it done. So, I totally just am reflecting, and it's a huge mistake. And I just want to figure out, how to remedy that in the future. You know what I mean?
So I want to be just really clear about what this conversation is. So is this a conversation about how to have systems in place, or is it about not to procrastinate, or maybe some of the things that we're working through within us to just tackle those issues that are at hand?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it about managing our client and their expectations and their emotions?
I mean, it could be all for sure, but I think it's more about the systems is what I kind of want to learn about right now. I definitely know there's self-exploration for me to just, be a better person. Like that's something that, I already know. And something that I definitely still need to learn is setting the right expectations and managing the client's emotions through the process. But with that experience, I really want to nail down some like processes for myself that something like this isn't going to happen again.
Okay, great. So let's outline the framework for what we're going to talk about over the next couple of minutes. We'll talk about a way to adhere to some sort of system so that nothing falls through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think the other part to that I think I'm hearing is just how we show up to the client.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly
Right.
what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
if we can give me a picture of how I should be showing up for the client, I can at least work towards that. But, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And I would love some clarity around that, or just some ideas.
Okay. Well, I'll kind of start this off, and then Mike, I would love to hear your perspective after that.
Yeah.
We are entrusted with our clients, in some cases, largest financial commitment or transaction of their life, or at least among the most significant moments that are also financial moments, and determine the trajectory in which their family's wealth goes based on how we serve them. So understanding that, I think, is just the most important part, is empathizing with the client, understanding where they're at. And, Carmen specifically, going to, her journey, she's in a tough situation, and she is relying on us to help her navigate through that. We got 50% of her deal done today, but the other 50%, we're working through that over the next week or so that she can accomplish the goal of downsizing into something more manageable. So I think understanding the client's perspective, and that's why it's so important to have that conversation before we ever work with anybody, to set proper expectations, but to also understand what their needs are at a really high level. We want to know what their needs are, but also what their fears are, what their goals are. We want to see the whole picture, because ultimately what we're doing is we say, hey, I hear what your goals are, and I have a very clear understanding of where you are right now. I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm guiding you through this. Ultimately, you're in the driver's seat, but I'm your GPS. I'm going to tell you where to turn and where not to turn. I'm going to tell you how fast to go, or how, what the speed limit is. So we provide that guidance to the client. So I think it's really important to take that relationship and hold it sacred. We are entrusted with this part of their journey, and this is a pivotal moment for all of our clients, whether it's their first house that they're ever purchasing, or it's their 100th house that they're ever purchasing. These are big deals.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we guide them through that experience matters. So I think that's the first perspective that we just need to really hold within ourselves, and energetically show up in a way where we hold that sacred and give ourselves to that journey for them. And so part of that is being the rock. So these are emotional purchases and sales, or at least there's emotions that tend to come up through this journey. And if we are doing the best possible service for our client, it's going to look pretty unemotional, logical, but also optimistic. And I think that's really important too, because a lot of people can get into a mind path of negativity, and negativity, in anything does not get the best results. So, it's one thing to be like, an optimist at all costs and not identify, the threats or the weaknesses of the transaction or of the client's position. I'm not saying that's the way to go. We have to identify the threats. We have to identify the opportunities. We have to identify the strengths and the weaknesses of our client's situation and of their path that they want to take. So I think it's really important that we are the rock for our clients. And when somebody calls you up and says, "Oh my God, I'm freaking out. What is going on here? This is the worst day of my life," to just let them vent, let them purge that out of their system. Sometimes just, venting to somebody really makes them feel better. But, you know, it's a fine line between buying into, you know, the chaos that they're experiencing in their consciousness, and also being empathetic to where they are right now. So I think it's important that we are empathetic, but we don't buy in to their way of thinking. You know, it's our job to lead them out of that thinking and into a healthier and more enjoyable way of thinking for that particular moment. So if they're freaking out over an inspection or whatever, you know, empathize with them and say, you know, tell me more about that. What are your concerns here? Just, you know, let me hear everything. What are your fears? Because ultimately the only reason why somebody has an emotional response that is of the negative, it's usually attached to some sort of fear. Oh, well, I just don't want to lose this house, or I don't want to end up homeless, or I mean, there's so many ways that a client can look at a certain situation and then put together, oh crap, I might be going down this road that will lead me to a very painful fear that for some reason is just housed within their awareness. And so what we can do is be the rock and say, you know, hey, thank you for sharing that. And I understand you. I see you for where you are right now. And I am here to guide you through this. And at the beginning of this relationship, you told me where you want to be. And what I can tell you is that I am extremely committed to getting you there, even if it doesn't look like the way that you think it should look like, or the way that I think it should look like. All I know is that we're going to get you there. So, Mike, let's hear your perspective on that.
I agree. I mean, there's always going to be a lot of emotions involved, especially when things aren't going the way that they think it's going, right? Sometimes in their head, things are supposed to go a certain way, but they don't know the system. They don't know the process. So, of course, for them, if it doesn't look perfect, they're gonna freak out. They're gonna be calling you, going, "Why is this not happening? Why is that not happening? Why didn't I get a phone call? Why didn't anybody tell me about this?" And they think it's done like within a couple minutes, when sometimes the process takes a lot longer. So just like Dean said, hearing them out, seeing what the issue is, and coming up with some solutions for it, and go, okay, which solution is going to work best for you, right? This is the problem. These are a couple of solutions. Which one? I mean, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to pick the one that best fit their needs. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's a great point. And the only reason why somebody ever has any sort of resistance over this journey of getting to the next transaction or getting through this transaction, the only reason why anybody ever has resistance is because their experience does not match their expectations. So sometimes if we can't do anything about their experience, then we have to have an expectations talk. And ideally that's done. And, you know, just through working with clients, you know, over and over and over again, we start to see the patterns in which, we have to take full responsibility for our client's experience, because ultimately that is in our hands. So if we find that our clients over and over and over again are, having similar resistance points, maybe we should do a better job of creating proper expectations and realistic expectations and say, hey, this is something that might possibly happen. This is something that I've seen before in that situation. And I just want to be clear about that. We're going to do everything that we can to get you to that goal, but it might be a little painful. It might be a little scary. It might be a little uncertain. And so my job is to get you through that. But I want to be really clear about some of these things that could potentially happen. And I need to know that you're okay with this before we engage in this relationship and we take this journey together.
Hey, Mike,
yeah.
when it comes to working with a buyer What do you think are some of the most important expectations to set?
Great question.
Well, for me, when I'm dealing with buyers, and then you're talking about once are you under contract?
No, I'm saying early on, like when you're trying to make them a client,
Okay.
they're still a prospect or a lead,
Well,
and you're getting to that point. You know what I mean?
got it. Well, I mean, when I talk to them, the expectations I let them know is pretty much, we try to get to know each other, right? They interview me in a way where they make sure that I'm the one that they want to work with, and I interview them in a way where I want to steer them the right way. So when I'm interviewing them, I need to see where they're at and where they want to be and what those steps look like to get there, right? Because it could be from they need to fix their credit. So to get to, a credit coach and getting their credit up and getting their finances can be one road compared to somebody that, their credit's good and they might need the down payment. So, that's going the route of maybe a down payment assistant route, or there's somebody that it has the down payment, is ready to go, but just needs some help with closing costs. So that's another direction. So you got to kind of see where they're at, where they want to be, right? And just conversate about it. The other thing too is I always try to, if they don't have somebody they've worked with in the past that they trust and like when it comes to getting pre-approved, let's refer them one or two people, let them connect and see if that's the best fit for them. Because again, a mortgage is a mortgage, but they're going to want to work with somebody that's going to be able to talk to them when they need to and handle them. You know what I mean? So setting that expectation in what direction means a lot, because at the end of the day, what I let them know is the bank tells us where to go, right? Because they're going to tell us how much we can shop for. They're going to tell us what type of loan they can get. And they're going to ultimately tell us, do they need any help with closing costs, which is kind of where we come into play, right? So now we know what group of houses they can see because we have a purchase price. We see, how much money they have for down. If they are approved for a certain amount, but they don't have that 3.5%, we can't go as high as they're approved for because they need to have that 3.5%. But we do have control of what we can possibly try to negotiate the seller to help us with closing costs. So really allowing them to be, talking to a financial person really plays a big role because they're the bank. They're going to tell us what to do and where to go. And then we're going to lead them in that direction, going, okay, well, now let's look at houses in this price range, right? But we have to remember what the loan officer said. You need closing costs. So I'm really going to have to really negotiate hard to get a seller that's willing to give us money back. But like any other relationship, when your seller's trying to sell and net as much as they can, and a buyer's trying to buy and save as much as they can, it's a give and take relationship. So if we need money back, we have to remember, let's give it to the seller so the seller can give it back to us, right? So the biggest thing is just getting to know your client, getting to know where they're at, and really having a great conversation with the loan officer so the loan officer as a team can lead us in the right direction, because they're the ones that are going to tell you exactly where you need to go. And then once you know where you need to go, you're the one that's going to fine-tune that, right? House price, seller concessions if they need it, just really work on your negotiation skills. And just look at the overall picture for both sides. If you notice that they just bought it a year ago and they probably only have, $10,000 to really play with, they got to pay a commission. So then that might not, they're just breaking even. And now you're asking them to give you more money back. It might not work. So if you look at the whole picture of what you're putting an offer in, they bought it a year ago. They're selling it for $10,000 more, add 6% to what they bought it to, do the numbers, just expect it not, and let your buyers know, listen, we're going to attempt it, but just picture this. They bought it a year ago. They're probably trying to break even for some reason. So there might be a possibility we might not get that seller concession, but I don't want that to be, to emotionally give you a ride, because if they say no, we know why, right? You set that expectation already. But if we get it, then the house was meant for you, right? So it's just looking at the entire picture. But having a financial advisor really plays a big role, or loan officer, because they're going to right off the bat lead you in the right direction.
So you're saying the lender does help set financial expectations too, right?
Yes, because we can start, like I said, we can put them on autopilot, right, on houses and prices, and just, we're not fine tuning anything. But until they physically can get, a glimpse of their past, which is W-2s and pay stubs, because
how early do you introduce the expenses incurred? You know what I mean? Like, that's an expectation that I always set now. I didn't in the beginning, but I learned that pretty quick, is you got to tell the buyers about the escrow, the inspection, the appraisal, and, the expenses before closing. So when do you introduce that?
Well, I always like to go over the process at one of the appointments, whether I set the appointment over the phone or I try to get them in the office, because you're going to go through that entire process from beginning.
So do it in the buyer consult.
Yes, because you're kind of teaching them the process there, and you're teaching them why it's so important to see a financial or loan officer, because on that roadmap, they're going to tell us what direction to go in, and then we're really going to be able to fine tune where we land. But in that process, we're able to explain what an escrow is, what it does, how does it count toward their closing cost, right? We're going to explain to them what an inspection is, what what an inspection looks like, what they go over, what the estimated costs are, which, again, that's a service, right? It's like getting an oil change. It's a service. Same thing. Then once we figure that out, we look at we need to fix anything. So we kind of go the process from beginning to end in the buyer's guide. That's how I created that buyer's guide, to show them this is the map, but we're going to go every step of the map so you understand every stop we're at, like a guide,
Yep.
Hey,
and that's a beautiful buyer's guide, by the way.
Right? Like, and I can't take full credit for that, but
oh, dude, that's all you, brother. I love that thing.
You break it down into sections, and they can take that home, take notes, whatever they want to do with it, so that you can go, hey, remember that time we spoke about the inspection on page 4? That's what we were talking about. These are the things, but these are going to be some of the costs you're going to see up front. The only cost that you're not going to see, like, go back into your closing costs, is inspection and appraisal, right? So your escrow will come out, because that's going to go toward your closing costs. But unfortunately, inspection and appraisal are services, right? Because it's a $500 plus or minus for an inspection, but that's to make sure you're not getting into a $5,000 or $10,000 repair that once you close, you're like, you own it. So it's just really trying to go over the steps, and that's why I think an appointment is so important, because you want to make sure that they kind of understand the process, and let them know you're going to touch up on the process during the process, because they're going to forget. It's a lot for them. Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And just to go back to what I said earlier, a happy client is created when their experience meets or exceeds their expectations. So when we think about the things that we need to prepare their expectations on, it's going to be oftentimes like the pain points. All right. So what are the pain points of the transaction? It, is sometimes, parting ways with money, which I think that is a very important conversation to have. You're going to need a couple grand just to get in the game. You're going to need your earnest money deposit. You're going to need your inspection. Oftentimes lenders have you pay for the appraisal prior to closing. Sometimes it's on the closing statement, but not always. So just prepare for it just in case. A couple other things I think about setting proper expectations is creating realistic emotional expectations. So in that initial buyer's consultation, which I do agree that is probably the most important meeting that you can ever have with a client, because it gives them a chance to explain where they are, and it's our discovery into where they are and where they want to go and where they've been, and maybe some of the things that they've experienced in the past that they definitely don't want to experience or they do want to experience moving forward. So setting proper emotional expectations where, you know, I'll say, hey, just so you know, this can be a very emotional experience. And like I said, my job is to guide you the best way that I possibly can. And you're in really good hands with me and my team. You know, we've, you know, do 100 units a year, whatever. And my, you know, my advice is to just expect that you're going to have these emotional moments and just know that I'm here for you every step of the way. In fact, there might even be some moments where you hate me, and I'm okay with that because there's no ego here. My job is to really serve you. And so if you're ever experiencing some emotions, please just communicate, which is another expectation that we can talk about. What is the communication expectations for this relationship? You know, how often should we be talking? How often, you know, when do you want me to update you? When do you want to, you know, to just talk? You know, sometimes people want to, you know, just sit on the phone for 30, 45 minutes and just, you know, just talk. I've had plenty of clients like that. I've also had plenty of clients that are like, hey, just tell me what I need to know and let's keep moving forward, for those like driver mentality people. So just depending on what is important for them, we can set the expectations around that. So communication expectations, but also like vision expectations. So part of being the rock for our clients is continuing to paint the vision for what this is ultimately going to be like. And we're coaching our clients through this, you know, through when things get tough and things get uncertain and they start freaking out, we listen to them. We affirm that, hey, what you're experiencing is exactly what you're supposed to experience, but just trust that everything will always work out the way that it's meant to be. What's for you never goes by you. And so painting the vision for, like, you know, hey, I know what the goal is. I know it doesn't seem like it's possible right now, but it is possible. And here's my recommendation on how we move forward so that we can manifest that for you and your family. So just continuing to go back to that is also really important. You know, the benefit of what we have is we've got a really, you know, amazing team. And so you can talk about the expectations of how our team can support them and support you in supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just like, you know, a great way to do an audit on, you know, your conversations that you have with your clients is, okay, what are the pain points that my clients are experiencing? What's a pattern that I'm seeing within my clients? Because again, we have to take full responsibility for their experience. We can't control their experience, but we do have to take responsibility for it. And what I mean by that is, if we find that that we have multiple clients experiencing the same thing that's causing some resistance, we've got to do a better job of setting proper expectations. Because if we set proper expectations, then we can always go back to that and say, hey, told you so. You know, hey, didn't I tell you you were going to hate me at one point? Well, look at us now.
Here it is.
Here it is. I told you this was going to happen. And the great news is that this is perfect. It always happens like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Going off that, just right off the bat, I don't know. You guys tell me if this is normal or not. The pain points though that I see consistently, man, like all the time, is just like an emotional roller coaster. Like, I don't want my clients to go through that, but is that normal? I don't know.
I think it is, because it's different pains and different pleasures for people. Some people have experienced or ridden it before, so they might not show that real dramatic changes. And then you've got somebody who's never been through the process before. You just have to understand it's one of the biggest investments in someone's life. So when it comes to that amount of money just going, you know, coming out of your bank account and no certainty until you get to the closing table to sign, it's a lot. They're taking your word and you're leading them through the process.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So And I think the biggest thing with us as the agent, is really knowing the process and our timelines, right? Because that really helps keep us in line with the client's goals, right? So that what I always do is once I go under contract, I always tell my clients, listen, the beginning of this is going to be like speed dating. We're going to go really fast and really hard the first week into this. And then after that, slowly going to die down. And then finally, it's really going to die down when we get to the end. So I'm going to really need, there's going to be a lot of communication in the beginning, and there's going to be a lot going on. I don't want you to be stressed, but you're going to have to trust me, and you're going to have to listen to me so I can guide you through the beginning of this. So, but I still give them the option when to do certain things. So I have to say, the first 3 business days, I'm going to have to figure out a way of either meeting up with you or you going to title, but we have to get your escrow deposit to the title company within 3 business days. Which of these 3 work for you, right? And which way would you like me to do it? I could pick it up, or you could take it, or you can wire transfer it. What's best for you? Because they might be a person that can do it on their phone. They could be somebody who I live right around the corner, I'll go. Or they're like, I don't want to deal with it. Kevin, here, come pick it up. But you gave them the option of what works best for them. And then let them know if you've got your inspection period. It's probably one of the biggest ones that I put on my calendar. When my inspection period ends. And I try not to wait too long to schedule that inspection because I need time in case something major comes up to get some estimates, to see what it looks like, what a repair request would look like. Like, would that be too much for the seller? They need some time to think about that too, and to do their homework to see if it's something that they can afford to commit to. So you're trying to do that in all of that inspection period.
Mm-hmm.
So, we refer companies to the clients. The clients have the opportunity to choose who they want as an inspector. And then you really got to work hard with that inspector to get them in quickly, do the walkthrough with them. I mean, be there for the inspection so that you can see the things. Because the inspector is going to tell you, hey, let me show you. And you're going to physically see it, because in that way you could say, you can really feel the severity when you're explaining it to your clients. But you can also talk them off the ledge because when they look at an inspection report, they're going to go, oh my God, all this stuff is wrong. Well, we know that it's a used house, but what to you is important that you want repaired or fixed? What do you need fixed now that you can't do later? So we're leading that emotion on them going, okay, let's go over the report and let me tell you what all this means. Okay. None of this is important or not important, but none of this is an emergency. A door that doesn't close right. It's an interior door. You're not going to lose air. You're okay. We can get somebody out later to adjust that. Now, your septic doesn't pass. I think that's pretty important. But let me figure out the options of what we can do to make that better. Whether that's repairing the septic, replacing the septic. Maybe you can't even replace it. Maybe you got to hook up to city. What does that look like? You see what I mean? So we just have to see what the options are and what's going to work best for the client. But having that timeline in your head, like the HOA, right? Some HOAs are mandatory, but they don't have a board, so it doesn't matter. The application the HOA addendum is good enough because it's not one of those boards that have people. Then you have the HOAs that do have boards that have to approve, or they still at least have to go through the process. We got to get that paperwork out as quick as we can, because the people that run those boards are people that you or me that have other things to do, and they have a time of when they meet to go over the stuff. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So anytime you have a condo association addendum or an HOA addendum, we really got to look at the requirements and how quick we need to get that in. That's going to be as quick as you're scheduling an inspection. That paperwork is going out to the HOA. Mm-hmm. Because you're dealing with 2 or 3 other people that have to get their, or even 4, that have to get their schedules together to meet to go over all this stuff too. So
do you just remember this in your head, or do you have do you have something that you follow? Because, I basically just am doing it from my head. You know what I mean? Like, this is part of my problem. So, like, how do you guys work that? Both of you guys. I mean,
Follow boss.
what does your system look like once you get the contract signed? I know we have the timeline come out to us, but even that, you know what I mean? Like that leaves my mind pretty quick. So, maybe coach me around that.
Dean, you want to go first?
Yeah. So Follow Up Boss. I mean, it gives us everything. You can always go into Follow Up Boss to see that timeline again in the deal section, but also create a task for yourself that ends, like inspection period ends. And then on your calendar, it'll actually show up if you put a date and a time, or if you click the button that
Reminder.
says all day, it'll put it up right up at the top. And so whenever you're planning your week, you not only should look at the activities that you're doing, but you should also look at the deals that you're servicing and say, okay, it's Sunday. I've got my week ahead of me. What do I need to be conscious of? What's very important for me to accomplish in my business, but also what's really important to service the business that I already have, service the clients that I'm already working with. And part of that is, okay, yep, I got an inspection period that's ending on Friday. This is where I'm at with that contract. And if there's anything that needs to be done, you can just, plan and I think it all just comes back to planning. If you don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I just 10, 15 minutes on Sunday, I just look at the week and just see what's going on and just say, okay, well, these are the things I want to get accomplished. So I'm going to plug them in, but what do I need to get accomplished for my clients? That has to take priority over anything else, because if you have it in the calendar, you're not going to forget it, and you can always go back to it. So that is a great way to, we already have the system. It's there for you. All you have to do is just use it. So once you get that timeline email from the operations department, you just plug those people into your Follow-Up Boss, plug it into your calendar, or however you want to keep track of it. But take a look at what your week looks like with all your deadlines, all your deals. There's going to be your calendar for your activities, and then your calendar for, timelines, and they can be all on one calendar, but those are two different ways to approach the calendar so that you're staying on top of all of the deals that you're managing. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'll share is, going back to expectations. We also need to set proper expectations on what the market looks like, whether that means, hey, you can't get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath pool house for $200,000. Yes, in 2012 you could have, but you should have had this conversation in 2012. Oh, you weren't ready? Well, that's fine. It's perfect now. But here's, if that's what you want, then this is what's required. Real estate, you can have anything you want. You just got to pay for it, right? So setting proper expectations for what they can achieve based on what the market's doing. But I think even more important than that is, selecting, whenever selecting a house, how they should respond when they walk into that house. And I like to set proper expectations like this, hey, we're going to go on probably 3 to 5 showings. The average person ends up finding the house on their 3rd showing, but it could be your 4th showing, 5th showing, who knows? But it might even be your 1st showing. But when you find that house that when you walk in, it feels right, you'll know. And it's just like falling in love. When you know. And if you go back to any of your clients that you've ever represented, it usually unfolded that way, where they're just like, oh, yep, this is the house. They probably didn't even see the full house. And they're like, yep, I like this. This is definitely the house for me. And you want to prep that experience by saying, hey, there's going to be a moment where you walk into a house and the energy feels good. The house works, it's going to feel right. Even if it might be, completely, it might be dirty. It might need some renovating, but that stuff actually doesn't matter. But if it feels good, mm-hmm. then you've got to listen to yourself, because that's our intuition. Our intuition is never wrong. We just have to listen to it. We can overthink anything. We can think our way out of the things that are actually meant for us. And that's when we end up having regret later on down the road. So when you go down this journey of finding a house, you're going to walk into that house. It's going to feel perfect. And here's the way that this market works. If it's a good deal, it's flying off of the shelves. And so the expectations that we can set is, I under my watch, I will not let you lose a house. And we have to work together in this. And so when you find that house, we need to cancel everything else for the rest of the day. And we've got to work on getting you that house. Sure. We can always, wonder what else is out there, and, that's, it's like finding your true love, but then not fully committing because you still want to see what's out there. It's our brain that tells us that, oh, what if I could do better than that? Right. But if it feels good, it's usually the right move. So I think having that conversation and saying, when you get that, when you get that feeling and when you have that experience of walking into a house, we've got to act on it. And this is what that process looks like.
And Kevin, some of the things that can work too, like Dean said, if you actually put you can actually set a reminder on the task and it'll remind you. You could put it to remind you from 10 to 50, to 15 to 30 minutes to an hour before the task comes up so that it can give you a reminder via email. And also, for me, the biggest set points for me is escrow and inspection. After that, the timeline for me doesn't matter because it's nothing that's in my hands to be able to do, right? Commitment, title company. Right? For the title commitment, loan approval, loan company, out of my hands. The only two things that I control in a transaction is the time you get the escrow in and the time your inspection period ends. Because after that, it's a waiting game for appraisal, and all you could do is renegotiate if it doesn't appraise. Right? Because if it appraises, it overappraises, now what? Okay, perfect. Congratulations. So I always just, for the escrow, I don't put it in my calendar because it's the first thing I'm doing the minute I go under contract. That and setting up an inspection, right? The two things I put in my calendar is when my inspection period ends and when I close the deal. Those are the only two things I put in my calendar.
Okay.
And maybe loan commitment if it's an extended closing.
Yeah. Well, if you extend the closing, you want to make sure you also extend your loan commitment. But you want to keep an eye on your loan commitment. But normally when you have a good loan officer, like I said, you're going to be speed dating the first week and a half with both the client and the loan officer. Because once you get past the appraisal stage, the appraisal is really what's going to really finish getting you that loan approval when the file goes to underwriting. So...
Awesome.
But really just, working on the steps of the process really helps out a lot. So once you know this step, you just make it habit, it makes it that much easier.
Yeah, and I think so much of it is just me, man. Like, it's the fact that I think I'm busy. I'm not busy, dude. Like, come on, seriously. Like, it's up here as much as it is out there. But I definitely appreciate, I wanted to get your guys like real world feedback on this type of stuff because that is part of my journey, and so much of the journey though is me just getting this right, and
yeah. Totally, man. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge you for taking responsibility. And I think a great agent does that.
For sure. So, that's where I want to be. I want to be there.
Yeah, man. So, kudos to you for taking responsibility for it. And, spiritually, it's our ego that tells us that we're too busy, right? It's always our ego.
Oh yeah.
And so when we, get that little voice inside of our head that says, oh, well, I'm too busy right now, I'm just going to put that off. That's, the ego always will give you some sort of logic to guide you into the path of destruction.
Hmm. So true. Yep.
Or at least the path of staying within your comfort zone, which ultimately it will lead you in a place that, it'll keep you alive, but it will not allow you to thrive.
Mm.
And we need to thrive for our clients. We are leading by example. So we've got to have our shit together. We've got to be centered in that and take the responsibility and know when our ego is showing up and say, oh yeah, well, thank you, ego, for trying to convince me that this isn't important. But deep down inside, I made a commitment to this client. This client made a commitment to me. And in order for me to keep my karma clean on this reality, I need to do the right thing. I need to let my heart lead, which is taking care of this client.
Well said. Thank you. Mike, any last uppercuts for me?
Yeah, give me your secrets of being so busy. I want to have to
be busier.
Yeah, I want to have the same problems. You're doing good. Always remember, we're here to give options, and they're there to pick it, right?
Cool.
So we can always give recommendations. I've seen that this is going to work the best, but at the end of the day, what works best for you? And let them decide.
Yeah, that's great. I love that approach. It's that can be super useful. I have that written down here you can use that in so many different situations throughout the process too.
And sometimes you might not know the answer, but they know the answer, and they're going to provide it just by listening to them. And then so what you're telling me is this would work great for you, and they're going to agree with you. And you're like, okay, so then let's do it.
Kevin, write down these 2 questions. These are 2 questions that will just give you a great snapshot of your client's mentality. Mike, do you have to pee or something? I see you.
Oh no, I'm stretching my leg out.
Here you are.
There's like a 2-hour video. There's like a 2-hour video.
Oh, it's coming out. So the 2 questions are, hey, tell me what would absolutely just make this experience be an ultimate success, and allow them to paint the vision, like, oh, if this could happen, this would be totally like just amazing. And then the second question is, what would make this a total failure? Or another way to say that question is,
I love how you say that, because neither one of those were even questions. I love that.
Yeah. and the other way that you can ask that question is, hey, what are your biggest fears? That's really what we're asking, right? What are your biggest fears associated with this? Or the points of resistance, because it's very, very important in that buyer's consultation that we get to know our client. Everybody's different. There's some people that will get super freaked out by one thing, where another client, it's like, no big deal. Oh, okay. Yeah, no big deal. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to know their sensitivity level to these different types of experiences that they could possibly have throughout this journey.
Okay.
So what would make this like just uber successful? And then what would make this a complete failure? Like, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, at least from your perspective right now, knowing what you know?
Yep. Cool.
Good job, Kevin.
Yeah, man, you're doing great. So that feels complete to me. Is there anything else that you guys think we should jam out on before we cut this recording off?
I think we should save everything else for another day.
Love it.
I like it.
All right.
Cool.
Well, on behalf of the Dean's List group, thanks for watching and listening in to our conversation. Kevin, thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for just fucking up a lot.
Anytime.
Yep. And then this is episode 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. By episode 100, you're gonna be a damn rock star.
Yeah. You're gonna be so confused, we don't even know what questions to ask.
Yep.
So anyway, always good chatting, guys.
All right.
See you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.